dominance of one media company, Seven West in Western Australia. They own the West Australian, they own basically every local newspaper in WA aside from a few, and they own Channel 7.
From a functioning democracy point of view, one of the key pillars is an independent media. And the media landscape is fairly not that diverse at this stage, or you may pick up few media houses, have different point of view or leanings. You can tell when they are presenting their point of views. So what do you see the role of independent media, or media which can question the facts and then follow the stories, from a point of view of supporting the idea of functioning democracy?
Well, firstly, I just think the state of mainstream media in Western Australia is just absolutely atrocious. You know, I don't know if you've picked up a copy of the West Australian newspaper in recent times. I don't know why most people would. Unfortunately, I kind of force myself to. Professionally, I want to know what's going on in the paper. I want to know what they're running, and every time I do, it just sickens me. It is basically a pamphlet for the oil and gas industry. That's what it's been reduced to. So we've got such dominance of one media company, Seven West in Western Australia. They own the West Australian, they own basically every local newspaper in WA aside from a few, and they own Channel 7. They have such dominance, the other media takes their lead from the West Australian. The ABC is just in a shocking state because they're so scared to put a foot out of line. They're worried about they're going to be political attacks. They're basically censoring themselves. Beyond that, if we're looking at legacy media, mainstream media, there's not much there. There are some good journalists doing good work. The journalists themselves will often do good work, but it's the structural part of it which is just in total disarray. So in a situation like that, we desperately need independent media. We need people like you doing what you're doing. I'm trying to contribute in my own way as well. There are others out there. We desperately need people to come along and say, hang on, I'm not so sure about that. Or even just to present another point of view. You know, it doesn't always have to be critiquing and challenging. It can just be, hey, here's a different view that's not going to get picked up on the mainstream media. I think we've also got to be a little bit careful because, you know, journalism is a skill, and I think it's actually an important skill. There's a lot of misinformation out there these days. It's a terrible word, I kind of hate the word, but there are a lot of bad facts on the internet. Like, everyone knows that, right? There's stuff that's true, there's stuff that's not true. It's hard on the internet. Even for, you know, I like to think of myself as fairly savvy. Even for someone who's fairly savvy, it can be hard to know what's real and not real. So what I'd love to see is good independent media that has good fact, you know, good kind of awareness of facts, good fact checking, but isn't also like lecturing people for being wrong all the time. Because I think that's one of the things about fact checking is that it can become a little bit kind of like, no, this is the official narrative, and if you go away from that, then, you know, you can't say that, you can't speak like that. No, let's speak openly, let's put things on the table. Let's also all recognise our own biases and our own points of view. We've all got a point of view. But yeah, let's try and create alternatives and let's try and democratise media as well. You know, everyone's got a point of view, and they should be allowed to share that. We should be able to have open dialogue. I think that's really important. You look at what's happened in the United States, you know, independent media I think is a large part of why Donald Trump's won a second term. Politicians in Australia are aware of that. That's probably why they're willing to talk to people like you and I, because they realise, oh, okay, you know, it's not just the kind of these big corporate-owned media companies that we need to be engaging with. It's creators, it's people online.